Hi, welcome to Audiobook Academy. This is a self-paced audiobook. There's no need to keep an eye on things. Just pay attention. Thank you for taking the time to listen. This is a book summary of The Culture Code by Coyle. As soon as the teacher says, "I'm going to divide you into groups to work on this project," many of us break out in a sweat. Nevertheless, why is this the case? Because we're social creatures. Why do so many of us find group work and teamwork so difficult? I found the Culture Code to be an interesting look into the dynamics of groups and how they interact. The central claim is that a leader's most important task is to cultivate and strengthen his or her organization's culture. Safety, sharing, and stories are three key elements of culture that we can use to unlock the full potential of our collective culture and relationships. Coyle is a New York Times best-selling author and editor who serves as an advisor to the Cleveland Indians. The idea of group culture and performance has fascinated him since he was a child. Let's take a quick look at what makes some groups succeed while others fail to understand his fascination with teams and teamwork. We'll also dispel myths about culture and outline a three-part strategy for creating and strengthening one. Changing one's culture is an option open to all. Toxic work, social, and family relationships can no longer be tolerated with the help of fascinating case studies, cutting-edge research, and practical tools. Decoding culture. Google is frequently cited as a shining example of a successful corporate culture. For this reason, it's a desirable place to work. More and more people are realizing the importance of strong organizational culture and how crucial it is to the success of any group or team. An organized group or team can either perform flawlessly, or it can fall apart due to a lack of cooperation. All of the parts of the machine can function if everyone is working together for the greater good. A group's effectiveness is jeopardized if even one member isn't committed. So how do you unlock the full potential of your culture so that everyone can invest and work for the benefit of the organization? He claims that we've been misunderstood when it comes to our understanding of cultural differences. In our minds, culture is an impenetrable concept that is difficult to pin down. There are some who call it the X factor, something that you either have or don't. Although it may seem like magic, it's a skill that can be learned and practiced. In addition, there's a formula for ensuring that we cultivate a strong and committed culture in which people thrive in group situations. It's time to put together your team. Who will you choose? The smartest, the most talented, or the hardest workers are the ones you select. Whatever your group's composition, the most important thing is how well you work together as a team. Due to their focus on the individual, micromanagement, and individual performance, many businesses have gone bankrupt. To illustrate his point, Coyle compares MBA students to kindergarteners. If you were given a group work and performance test, how would you compare kindergartners to MBA students? Apparently, the kindergartners annihilated their older, wiser and more educated opponents. An experiment by Peter Skillman looked at the effects of group dynamics on outcomes and performance. This is the tallest structure you can build with just string, uncooked spaghetti, and a marshmallow. He gathered teams from kindergarteners to MBA students and asked them to do just that. In contrast to the students, the kids were able to build structures that measured 26 inches in length. So, what went wrong with the students' learning experience? According to Skillman, the MBA students succumbed to status management. Whereas the kindergarteners just dived headfirst into the project and tried to build the highest tower they could, the MBA students focused on who should be in charge, who should occupy what role, and who had what skills to offer. Because of this, the MBA students were unable to come up with effective solutions to their problems. If we look at the kindergarteners, they just merely started trying and failing and eventually learned through trial and error. Even though their approach was unconventional, it was also one of mutual support and cooperation. No egos or squabbling for position were present, and most importantly, there was no fear. We've now arrived at the first of three essential elements for creating and maintaining a positive culture: fear of failure. Priority is given to ensuring the safety of all. A newcomer's first time in a group can be challenging, and it's not always easy to be the new person. While it can be intimidating when everyone joins a group at once, it's also possible that some people will naturally compete for position. It was easy to see that the kindergarteners had little fear and were eager to get to work on their projects, just as the MBA students were. Status management, a symptom of insecurity, was a common theme among students. It's important to foster a sense of belonging in a group by encouraging openness, honesty, and mutual respect. One of the more popular postmodern catchphrases is, "You're either in or you're out." A lot of our instinctual decisions about being in or out are based on whether or not we feel safe. Furthermore, safety is essential because it allows us to relax and give our best effort when we are not on guard. Allowing ourselves to be vulnerable makes it easier and more natural to interact and cooperate with those around us. What can we do to create a sense of safety and security in our students? Like culture, a sense of belonging and safety aren't a magic pill. Open lines of communication are one of many factors that contribute to their formation. We've all been in situations where we felt like we weren't being taken seriously or that we weren't heard. Apathy or rebellion are the most common reactions in these situations. People of all ranks are encouraged to engage in open channels of communication when their workplace fosters a positive culture. Everyone should feel appreciated and recognized for their contributions to the group as a whole. When it comes to our desire to belong, it all comes down to the belonging cues we're given. In order to gain the support of your team members, you must pay attention to them and show genuine interest in them. Positive affirmations are a simple and effective way to reduce anxiety. Regular micro-signals that validate individuals in small but significant ways must also be sent out regularly. Positive yearly performance evaluations aren't enough to keep people feeling safe. Leaders who know how to use belonging cues to their advantage can help their employees feel more connected to each other. As an example, Coyle cites Wipro, a call center with a shockingly high rate of employee turnover. Their turnover rate was so high that they were shedding half of their workforce every year. An in-house experiment by Wipro found a solution to this problem by dividing their company training in half. Regular training was provided to one group, and an additional hour was provided to the other. Trainers discussed company values, introduced high flyers, and so on in a one-to-many setting during regular training. For an extra hour each day, half of the workforce was subjected to personality quizzes. They were asked about their best and worst days at work, as well as what special skills they had. There were 270% better retention rates after just 7 months of this experiment. This extra hour of belonging cues had a significant impact on employee motivation and buy-in. Relations, in Coyle's view, have a physics all their own. In the same way that trust is built and delivered through small acts rather than grand gestures, so too is safety. In order to build a relationship, it's important to have clear communication channels, listen, and show that we care. So, how can we implement effective belonging cues? Belonging cues emphasize the importance of a shared future and a sense of safety. Being listened to, receiving small gestures of support, and making physical contact all contribute to a sense of connection. To ensure long-term stability and advancement within the company, future cues are essential. Finally, security cues include the provision and acceptance of feedback, the value of individual and group opinions, and the recognition of work ethic. Provide feedback. In order to cultivate a culture of honesty, it's important to recognize the difference between being authentic and being nice. This does not mean that acknowledgement is necessarily pleasant, it should always be honest and constructive. Using interjecting affirmations, such as "great idea," "you're really onto something," or "good job," is an example of a cue that shows you're interested in them and want to form a connection. It's also critical to show genuine interest in other people in their work, as well as a willingness to listen to what they have to say. As a follow-up, Coyle recommends that instead of shooting the messenger, we should embrace the messenger and learn from the bad news he or she brings to our attention. Additionally, you'll demonstrate that telling the truth and communicating openly is safe. To sum it all up, never underestimate the power of the one-liner. Sending an email asking recipients to comment on one thing you'd like me to do more of and one thing you'd like me to do less of can go a long way. Caring about others is a form of selflessness. Vulnerability, says Brené Brown, is a strength, not a weakness. Traditionally, teamwork has been viewed as a competitive endeavor, in which people must compete for their place in the team. Toxic and ungovernable work cultures are fostered when employees are pitted against one another and their weaknesses are hidden. Coyle reveals that the leader of a group is usually the first to admit their own weaknesses and vulnerabilities. Even the most successful leaders have their share of failures, and this is a reminder that no one is perfect. When it comes to working together as a team, everyone has an important role to play in a distinct set of strengths and weaknesses. Everyone has been there. During a job interview, we're asked, "So, what do you think your weaknesses are?" As a defense mechanism, we disguise our strengths as weaknesses in order to avoid having to face the fact that we are flawed. Being a perfectionist is a mistake. We should own our flaws and vulnerabilities rather than try to hide them. Perfection is a myth. Being open and vulnerable demonstrates character and builds trust. This creates a vulnerability loop, which is the snowball effect that occurs when people start sharing and trusting each other, as one person begins to open up. During United Airlines Flight 232, a powerful example of asking for help and relying on group strength was displayed. Page needed, Flight 232, operated by United Airlines, experienced a catastrophic failure in 1989 and was forced to make an emergency landing. In spite of the 112 deaths, 184 people made it out alive, which was a remarkable feat considering the odds were stacked against them and no one expected anyone to survive. Because of this, how did they manage to save so many people? As a result, the plane's captain encouraged everyone to help solve the problem, rather than just taking control as other captains might have. As a result of his admission of his flaws and the implementation of cockpit resource management, the problem could be solved with the help of all parties involved. What happened to you? Having an overarching mission is critical for everyone on any given team. In order to get people emotionally invested, you need a clear message and a strong sense of purpose. Just getting Keith and marketing to come up with a catchy slogan, a pithy mission statement, or an eye-catching logo isn't going to be enough to give your company a sense of direction. A story is all that's required to get your hands on a copy of Keith from any given company. Create an inspiring narrative around shared goals to build a sense of purpose. Storytelling has a powerful effect on us because it makes us believe in the importance of what we are doing. We need to start with why? Says Simon Sinek. When people believe they are part of something great or revolutionary, they are compelled to change their ways of thinking in response. In addition, having a clear purpose helps everyone stay on message and work within the framework provided by the group's values. It's also a great way to ensure that everyone is on the same page when it comes to the group's objectives and priorities. In addition, by constructing a compelling narrative, individuals are better able to envision the future and work toward overcoming challenges. It wasn't just a hurdle that Johnson & Johnson faced in 1982, it was a tragedy of epic proportions. That year, 7 people in Chicago died from cyanide poisoning in the month of September. There was a saboteur in the form of tampered Tylenol capsules. When Tylenol went away, it was a huge blow to Johnson & Johnson, and many thought they couldn't get back on their feet. Although Tylenol was relaunched 2 years later, the company's fortunes had rebounded by that time. How did they manage to get out of this enormous situation? As a result of the widespread recall, the company provided customers with free upgrades to a more reliable model. Since no company had ever conducted a complete product recall before, many people viewed this decision as corporate suicide in 1982. Leader James Burke exhibited outstanding leadership qualities and was commended for his openness and honesty in communicating with the team. Johnson & Johnson were able to weather the storm despite significant revenue losses because they had a leader with an unbelievably clear purpose and strong ethical duty. It was James Burke's job to stay true to the company's core values. End of the story. A must-read for anyone who wants to understand or change group dynamics is The Culture Code. Tolerating or allowing a toxic group culture has no place in today's society. It is possible to alter the dynamics of a group and the culture through the use of Dan Coyle's 3 simple strategies. Because they have been carefully cultivated, great teams don't just happen to have chemistry by accident. Cohesion and trust are built through the development of safety, vulnerability, and a shared purpose. In other words, take a look at the groups to which you belong, whether they are personal or professional or educational. Make a list of all the things you would change about the culture, as well as the specifics of how you would implement those changes. Adichie says that culture does not create people, people create culture. Thank you for listening in Audiobook Academy. Please don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. See you in next audiobook.